I wanted to get together today and have another MooTini or Mootino conversation with my buddy, the wizard, the great Santino. So how you doing, Santino?
Great, Moo. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Before we get started here, I just want to say for the both of us, and I'm sure Santino's got something to say about this too, we're just two crypto enthusiasts. We are not financial advisors, as you can tell by my attire. I don't even know if I'm human half the time. So that being said, these are wild speculations. These are for fun. And these are just conversations between two friends about topics we're interested in. If anyone takes this as financial advice, you're an idiot, and you really shouldn't do that. Also, once again, these are just opinions, and that's all they are. Anything to say about that, Santino?
Yeah, totally agree. I barely take my own advice. I wouldn't want anybody else to take it.
That's great.
As a friend of mine once said, you have a singular ability for not taking good advice. So
Oh, that's classic. Right?
No, I always enjoy just chatting. I think that's really what this is. For me, it's just an opportunity to chat with you for an hour or so.
Yeah. And, one thing that Santino and I both appreciate is this is not an interview. If anybody out there feels like one of us is stepping on the other one, that's not what this is intended to be. It's not an interview style. This is just an open conversation that we thought we would record and see if anybody else is also interested in these topics. So, take that for what it's worth. But let me go ahead and try and do a little bit of sharing. I hope it comes through okay. There's a couple topics that I wanted to get into, and there's one that I forgot to mention to you as we were chatting a little bit before we started recording, which I might spring that on you at the end, and I might not. We'll see how it goes. But the DeFi space is a space that Santino and I, and typically how these topics arise are these are things that pop into the crypto sphere or things that we're interested in. Once again, we're not experts. We're stumbling along and learning like everybody else. And but there are certain topics or certain things that come through that is very interesting to us. And the idea that DeFi it's breaking all sorts of records, fundings and lockups. I think the other day we hit another record at 827 million lockup values. So once again, DeFi is continuing on the Ethereum platform and other supporting platforms. It continues to be breaking all-time records. So as a general trend, this is one of the things that pops up and it gets our attention. So we kind of want to talk about it. Once again, we're not experts here. We're fumbling around like everybody else. But just as an intro, Santino, how do you feel about DeFi? Any initial thoughts?
Yeah, I think this is one that you and I both agree on, Moo, quite strongly. DeFi's sort of come on the space in the last 12 months or so in a big way. And it's recently in the last few months, it's caught my attention simply because it's been able to penetrate and the adoption seems to be going up, and it seems to have some legs. Usually when I start paying attention to any market, it's because it's beginning to break out or beginning to show positive signs. I don't really, as you know, I don't really rely on hope. There's a lot of things that have a lot of prospect, or they look great, or they sound great, or it sounds like it's a great protocol, but I need to see proof that something's happening with it. It keeps me out of trouble. And it's starting to happen in DeFi for sure. I mean, some of these guys they're grappling with how to value the internet, and we're starting to see, interesting moves from locked assets into how to utilize assets. The financialization of the internet is beginning right before our very eyes. So to me, this is all very exciting. Doesn't mean it's not there's caution flags here too, folks.
For sure.
Yeah, like it's not all, like I'm always very cautious to say, look, when I see things like zero collateral DeFi,
yep,
and super high interest rate returns, I start questioning what the health of the underlying asset is. And remember, these things are attached to an asset, so you have to quantify what the health of that asset is. So this is by no means without risk as well, right?
Absolutely, 100%. And I would hate for anyone to get involved in this space. You know, it's okay to go down the rabbit holes, but when you're talking about your hard-earned money, or you're talking about, you know, your time and energy at some level, you know, you have to be careful. This DeFi space, it encompasses a lot of things, right? Assets, payments, derivatives, well, DEXs, just like it says on the screen there, lending. So it's really a wide swath. And anytime I think we're talking about a derivative or a potential returning, I don't want to use the word investment, but a potential return, I think we all have to be very careful about what these are. I would never suggest blindly putting any money into any of these. But if this begins you on your journey of going down the rabbit hole and becoming educated about what these things do, for example, like Maker, right? So Maker's I've always viewed that as a competitor to those stable coins, right? Something like Tether. And Maker's been around a long time, and there's a lot of lockup there. So just on this page, it looks like there's about 4.5 million lockup. A lot of people use that. I have to be completely honest with you. I have never used Maker, but I've researched it a lot, and I'm interested in it. And it was really the first thing of this nature to be rolled out. So as we look through this list, Santino, do you see anything that kind of sticks out to you? I know we were talking about KyberNetwork a little bit earlier, but anything here that kind of stands out that you want to talk about, whether the trend of more and more money being locked up, or one of these specifically, or anything?
Well, two things that stick out for me. One is, if you want a conservative play on DeFi, to me, it's very clearly Ethereum. Right?
Yeah.
Just the amount of activity that's going on Ethereum with respect to this space is phenomenal. And you know, there's been a lot of sort of false stuff coming out, as there always is. You know, with crypto, you have those people that are super high on something, or those people that just want to bring it down. That the truth is always somewhere in the middle, right? But
yeah.
Ethereum, the knocks are that it's clunky. You know, that only whales use it. That it can't scale. That's already been proven not true.
Yeah.
Just for the record,
Yep.
It's all BS.
Yep.
But you know, is it fully being adopted? No. Is it moving towards adoption? Yeah. I mean, just look at the numbers. Look at the lockup numbers. Look at what's happening. It's beginning to move in the right direction, and it's trend that I look at. Right.
Right.
So when I look at the trend, I say to myself, yeah, this is beginning to gain steam, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
And yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't mean to step on you. You got another point and I want to hear it. But, you know, we've talked a long time, many months now, about the financialization of crypto. And this is part of it, right? This is part of it. It was going to look like this. And I think people that wished it wasn't going to look like this, or wasn't going to evolve this way, this is how it was going to evolve. I think you and I are not surprised, right, by what has happened.
No. I mean, we were saying this over a year ago. Certainly I was. And certainly when you and I first met, I think it's one of the first things we discussed was how this was going to roll out, how the banks were get involved, how we would see derivative markets in crypto. I mean, you know, the original sort of people that were in maybe had a view, a vision, and I respect that. I really do. I respect that. But I never saw it playing out the way that they were seeing it. And so far, you know, I think the people that have been betting on, you know, it being financialized the way it has, they've been proven right. I mean, we're going to start to see crazy things. We're going to start to see, a derivatives platform on Bitcoin. You know, we could see that on an Ethereum platform where you can have a derivative of on-chain Bitcoin, you know, and bet on Bitcoin. If, believe me, we're going in this direction. We're going to see it.
For everyone listening or watching, I'm going to include a ton of links at the end of this, so they'll be in the description. Some of them we'll hit on, some of them we won't. But, today Santino mentioned in a different forum that he was interested in some Binance information that came out where Kyber looks like they're just slaying, right? So under the covers, Kyber runs a lot of different things, runs a lot of different swaps. It's a decentralized protocol, platform, dealing with DEXs, some different things. But I came across this article, and I don't know if this is the one he was referencing, but Binance has done some different. They have a 1, 2, and a 3. I don't know if they have a 4, but I'm sure 4 is coming. Where they kind of talk about the nature of DeFi and how they see it rolling out. I found this one really interesting. It's DeFi number 3, 2020, the borderless state of DeFi. I just want to read a little bit. So they're kind of pontificating where this DeFi market is going, some things they see as being significant, and some significant players. But this one here, decentralized exchanges 2.0, also picked up in volume. Uniswap was used by more than 19,000 users, exhibiting a total annual volume of 390 million. And also, Kyber was used by more than 35,000 users and displayed a yearly volume of 387 million. When I see numbers like that, I know it's significant. I know if I'm not paying attention to it, I need to be. Any thoughts about that, Santino?
Yeah, this is what's caught my attention on Kyber in the last little while. It seems to be becoming one of the leaders in its space. So decentralized exchanges, decentralized apps, it's beginning to trend up in a pretty rapid way. As an investor, I look at that and I say, well, those penetration rates should reflect in price at some point down the road.
Yeah.
And maybe the opportunity is that it hasn't been noticed yet, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I got to admit, I feel like I have a pretty good handle of economics from my background, but finance, I really don't. So I have to reach out to people that I, one, trust, and two, I think are knowledgeable about the space. This number of users is it's incredible to me. If you were to compare these with the 2018 numbers, you would be blown away. It's obvious that these platforms, specifically here, it's talking about Ethereum DeFi alone. Look at this adoption. This is great. 35,000 on Kyber. That's great.
Yeah, it's beginning to get a reputation for being very liquid and being fast.
Yeah.
So if you're going to be, doing this, if you're going to be doing any trading, if you're going to be doing anything with these assets or swapping, what are you looking for? You're looking for it being fast. You're looking at, for it being very liquid. So it's drawing in some bigger players because of that. And so what happens is the more it draws in, the more liquid and the quicker it becomes.
Right.
So it's kind of feeding off itself. So, I mean, there's no guarantee. One of these other platforms could knock it off, or someone else could start leading 3 months. I mean, this is crypto. Anything could happen.
Right.
But
right.
I like the trend. I like what's happening. It seems to be popping. Something is attracting users to their site.
Yeah.
To their protocol, right?
Absolutely. Down here in charts 21, 22, we have some comparisons, aggregated trading volume, basically DEXs with 0x, and 0x would be a competitor to Kyber, daily trading volume of Uniswap. So really interesting to me. And we've read article after article after article also about bonds being settled on Ethereum. Wow, for a virtual machine protocol, I didn't expect so much financialization. Maybe that's my own ignorance, but did you expect? Seems like that's where the bonds want to live, or that's where the bonds are going to live.
I saw the movement to bonds quite a while ago, only because I kind of spent a lot of years in those markets, right? So I'm looking at it from that perspective, right?
Yeah.
And the first thing I'm saying is, wow, how can this be used this way or that way? And if a schmuck like me can figure it out, somebody a lot smarter and a lot bigger than me is putting their minds to it. And those slimy banksters are putting their minds to it.
Absolutely.
Right? And they're going to get involved in this. And why? Because there's money to be made.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely. Well, let's get off the DeFi subject for a minute. Like I said, I'll put a ton of links down below. I think not this one, but this Medium article is really great. It talks about the Kyber protocol upgrade, basically its plans in 2020. This is not very old of an article. It's about a month old. It lists some pretty significant statistics here. I thought that this was pretty cool. Basically, just talking about some of the swaps, talking about some of the decentralized payments, talking about some of the decentralized finance things that they're involved in. There's several nice flow charts here. So if you want to know what Kyber is all about, check it out. And full transparency, I own 0 Kyber, but that doesn't stop me from being interested or think it's interesting. Any thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, anything can happen, right? The reason Kyber got my attention is the reason any asset would get my attention. It's beginning to show signs of adoption. It's beginning to move up. It's trending up, and it's accelerating. The trend is accelerating. So that tells me there's something going on here that I should be paying attention to. If for those that want to be involved in the DeFi space, and this is just my perspective for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be like, okay, well, my conservative pick for DeFi is Ethereum, right? And so, okay, I know that Ethereum is going to succeed. It's showing signs. It's the most likely to succeed in that space. It's the train tracks. And then, I'll add a little Nitro, and maybe some Kyber, maybe some OX, right? I'll gamble a bit, and see how these things do to goose it a bit. Not that you need that with any crypto investment, because you already have that. But as I've described it many times, it's kind of like buying Kyber to offset your Ethereum is like putting nitro on a dynamite truck, right?
Yeah. No, that's a great way to describe it, right? So another thing that caught our attention, specifically mine, I'm not sure if Santino was hip to this before, but Grayscale, they released their 2019 report, Digital Asset Investment Report. The highlights are really incredible to me. So, total investment into Grayscale products, 225.5 million, average weekly investment, all products, meaning Bitcoin, non-Bitcoin, 17.3 million, average weekly investment, just to the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, 14.9 million, and then the non-Bitcoin Trust, 2.4 million. This is significant. This is always increasing. This, this blows my mind. I think that brings total investment into Grayscale products at about 600 million. This is significant. There's some nuance to this as well that I think are, it's really important. I think they grew their user base 24%. It's interesting to also know or notice what the weights are. I mean, we're seeing it's obvious from here. When this money is coming in specifically to Grayscale, it's primarily going to Bitcoin. It's not going to alts. It's not going to their alt fund. Any thoughts about that, Santino?
Yeah, it's, Moo, so this Grayscale, and I'm not necessarily, touting it as an investment. It's not for everybody. It depends on your personal situation. Some people can only have accounts where they can't put pure crypto in, but they can put the Grayscale funds in. So it's a way to get exposure in areas that normally you couldn't get it. But it's interesting to note that they had a thing a little while ago that showed millennials in the US, how many of them own this fund. It's crazy.
Right.
So what you have is small office investment houses, small office sort of operations involved, pensions are involved in this fund. This is where normie money goes if they want crypto exposure.
Yep.
And it tells you a lot. If you watch this fund, it tells you what the overall health of the crypto industry is a proxy for crypto health in the United States.
100%. 100%. And once again, how it's being financialized, how it's morphing, how it's changing. And those things we must be aware of, I think, as crypto enthusiasts or hobbyists, it's something we really should pay attention to. The trend is obvious. What this says to me is there's no shortage of money coming in weekly. Whoa, holy shit, right? So when people are telling you Bitcoin's going to $3,000 or $1,000 or it's going to go to zero, really? Because it looks like a whole lot of money's coming in. Some things that get me excited about this is basically nearly 15 million weekly into Grayscale BTC Trust. As we approach the halving, that makes me really excited. My guess is, and this is just a guess, but my guess is price will potentially go up as rewards are cut in half and more money's flowing in, supply tightens. Any thoughts about that, Santino, as we approach the halving around these normie products?
There's a crazy amount of money coming into this. And you're right, that's where money will go, for a lot of different reasons. One, they don't have to screw around with custody. They have a secure custody solution. Barry Silbert is an insider and he's the quintessential insider. Him and Novogratz and a few others. Believe me, they have a close working relationship with the SEC. I'm not going to get into the whole SEC and what it is and do they have an agenda, and of course they do. I'm simply coming from an investor standpoint. Okay, so nothing's going to get done in the U.S. unless you have a relationship with the SEC. You can argue with me up and down, but so far history has proven me correct. So these guys, we should be paying attention to what they're doing with their money. And Grayscale owns a crazy amount of pure Bitcoin.
Yep.
Like I don't know what the percentage is, but they have an insane amount of Bitcoin, and they've never sold it. So they're not out there dumping it. They're not out there, moving it around and trying to screw around with. They want this to succeed, right? And if they want it to succeed, that means if that's true, then a lot of other things have to be true.
Yeah.
You can connect the dots, right?
Absolutely.
The U.S. is not trying to kill, the SEC is not trying to kill crypto. The U.S. is not trying to kill it. They want to financialize it. They want to make money from it.
Yeah. To me, I just had a flash. It seems like it's a piano that they're lowering down, right? They're lowering down from a 5th-story window, and they're trying to be as slow, methodical, and cautious as they can. They know that this is a transition. It's not a flip the switch type deal. And I don't think anyone out there would want it to be. That would create a lot of disruption.
That's a great analogy. That's exactly how it is. If you look at the premiums that people are paying to get into these funds, it's insane.
Yeah.
That's another thing it's telling you. What's it telling you? People don't want to be responsible for their own keys. They don't want to be responsible for custody. You know what? That trend's not going to go away.
Right.
Custody solutions are a big part of mass adoption. People need to know it's secure. People, as much as the early adopters like us think that it's crazy to let someone else have your keys and secure your crypto, we will be the outliers in what's coming.
Yeah, for sure. Well, if that's the state of, Grayscale Q4 2019, if that was the current state, which is damn impressive, this bit of news popped up and it really caught my attention. So, because immediately I'm thinking, okay, well, where are they going now, right? Well, wow, they become the first digital asset basically to apply for, what do you call it? Form 10. So Form 10 filing is available. So this is a press release that they put out. So they're going to be the first ones to go ahead and file Form 10. This lays the groundwork for reporting to the SEC where it's rudimentary and customary. What this does is this doesn't automatically mean that, Joe Public can get involved in this fund or this trust, but this has to be one of the steps in getting there. If anybody understands how that works or understand how the flow works, or if you don't, well, I just told you. So, so I think that's absolutely amazing, and I'm also going to include the actual filings if you want to sick your lawyer on them, or maybe you're a lawyer yourself, or you can't go to sleep at night and you need some dry reading. So there you go. But there's the actual filing. This is huge. They are the first ones. Any thought about that, Santino?
Well, this is why it's important to us as crypto investors, because right now they trade over the counter.
Yeah.
They want to move to the big board. Understand this, that once they move to the big board, they now become like certain pension funds, certain big institutions. It's now they can own it in their funds. Right now they can't own it because it's over the counter and they have certain internal regulations or sort of rules and guidelines where they, a lot of these big houses will not hold over the counter, assets.
Yeah.
The moment they go their big board, it opens it up for mass adoption in the U.S. They will pile into this thing. You won't need, there was so much talk. I remember one time about a BTC ETF and what that would mean for the market. Yeah. Like, it was just never going to work that way.
Nope.
They're going to do it this way. This is the way they're going to do it.
Yep. Yeah. So Grayscale becomes the first digital asset trust to file with the SEC. Grayscale Trust has become the first digital asset vehicle, begin reporting to the SEC, putting it one step closer to public trading. I'm super excited, man. This is awesome. This is cool. And I guess a side note, I can't stop it, right? This might not be how I wanted it to unroll, or but this is how it's unrolling, and I'm not surprised. And I guess it's there's going to be many layers to this and many angles and sides. So I guess the common theme so far in the topics we've gotten into are how this unrolls. And we're seeing the financialization of crypto. We're seeing DeFi space gain more and more traction and lockup. We're seeing Ethereum play a larger part in that. We're seeing this filing. We're seeing the reporting where it's becoming very customary, right? SEC is not reaching out to Grayscale saying you must report. Grayscale is going the other way and just providing. So very, very interesting. Any thoughts before we get on to some Tether stuff?
Just be very aware, and I know many are. I'm not saying anything that's going to surprise anybody, but there are some serious insiders looking to shape what crypto looks like in the U.S. Yeah. And what crypto looks like in the U.S. will be what crypto looks like in the world. Trust me, that's how it's going to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks. That's really important and very interesting. And once again, we are not financial advisors. We're two guys just having a discussion, and we thought everybody else would be interested in this discussion as well. So some interesting things about Tether, the Tether flows and the Tether prints are something I pay attention to. I think a lot of people believe that whenever we see a massive print, it should pump the price of Bitcoin. I'm sorry, but that's just not the case. Anybody telling you that is wrong. What it should signify is injection of liquidity into that system. Sometimes equates to price, sometimes it does not. I could probably go on in a little bit deeper detail about how that works and why it works and the other ways it flows, but I don't want to. But we can see here there was a 64 million print on the 20th. I think if we go back to the 4th of January, there was a 61 million print, and on the 7th, there was a 15 million print. Any thoughts about these prints, these massive prints to Tether? What I've noticed over the months and years, well, months really, I wouldn't say years, many months, is that these prints seem to be larger and larger in larger and larger chunks. I don't know what that signifies, but any thoughts about Tether in general, these prints, how it relates to the market? Any thoughts at all?
Well, one of the things this tells me, and really the only thing you can draw from it, in my opinion, is that there's a lot of velocity in Bitcoin. In other words, there's a lot of movement in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And yes, probably stemming from Asia, I would suspect, and partly from Russia, from countries that are trying to hide or track their movements, camouflage their movements.
Yep.
This is a murky world. I would caution anybody by trying to, draw any hard and fast implications from this and then trying to invest on this information, because it hasn't worked out. Right. We don't know how it will play out in the end. The only thing I can say with any certainty is if Tether gets involved in some kind of trouble, you will see it in the Bitcoin price, i.e. you will see Bitcoin rise in price because there'll be a flight from Tether to Bitcoin. So because you're going to have a lot of people talking consistently about Tether's going to go, it's going to go under, Bitfinex is going to go under, Tether is very tied to Bitfinex. You're going to see all this kind of stuff. And I'm not saying it will or won't happen, but what I'm saying is so far, there's been no evidence to suggest in price action that that's going to happen. And as you know, for me, price is truth, right? Yep. So unless I see it in the price, I don't believe it.
Right.
And if you start to see Tether is really in trouble, you will see a massive spike in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
With an eventual hangover, because the money will flow out of Tether into Bitcoin, and then it's going to get the hell out of Bitcoin in a hurry as well. So if you see a spike like that, you should be selling that spike. But so far, I don't want to see that. I don't think that would be healthy for the market, to be honest. So so that's what I would have to say. I just don't. It's very, very difficult to draw conclusions from what we're seeing here because we don't really know what's going on.
Yeah. Yep. It's definitely liquidity, right? There would not be this sort of injection unless liquidity was needed for some reason. What that reason is, like I said, I could probably give you 10 why that would be, but I don't want to. So, and I'm sure Santino feels the same. So some of these issues are murky. Some of these issues are extremely cloudy, but just be aware of anyone telling you what this means. I think probably very few select people know exactly what these are when it happens and what the result of them will be. So just be aware of that. I noticed on ETHPOR that they started marking the exchanges, which is great. So in the past, we would have to go track down this address and figure out that it's like a Bitfinex address, or, you know, some of us might have spreadsheets or files or tables, you name it, that have already resolved these. But anyway, so it's kind of nice in ETHPOR that you can see that where these prints are now going to the major exchanges. So that's cool. This site also, I've showed this many times, but I love this website. Even though it's 24 hours delayed, it'll show you these flows in and out. For example, it's 2.15 billion. If I refresh, 2.19 billion. So what I've noticed is about 8 p.m. these refresh significantly, so they must reset on UTC time or something. But it's the money flow in the last 24 hours. It's not real time, and I would never use these other than to see what happened 24 hours ago. So that's kind of how I treat these. But it's interesting. Sometimes we'll see. In Santino, you and I have seen this before, where there will be some coin, some token that we don't necessarily see on our radar, and suddenly, whoa, the price goes crazy. I'll come in here, I'll take a look just real quick. Oh, there was a ton of money that was sent over there to that coin from Bitcoin or Ethereum or Bitcoin Cash or EOS, you name it, from Tether or some other place. But pretty interesting. Any thoughts?
That's a great chart. I would encourage everybody, and Moose put it up there. I guess he's going to click it in the links, because this really tells you what's going on with a particular coin as far as its liquidity and its velocity, and it could be a heads up, especially the smaller coins. Mm-hmm. So the bigger coins, they tend to move up and down pretty, but Moose bang on. If like you see Cosmos there in the end, like, why is Cosmos all of a sudden on there? You know, like all of a sudden Stellar's on there. Why is that on there? So this is pretty important. And it also will tell you, you know, why U.S. regulators aren't looking to kill Tether, right? If they wanted to kill it, they'd have done it. What they do is, that's just not how U.S. regulators work. They send a warning shot across the bow, right? Which they did with Tether. The market is not concerned about Tether going under. Because U.S. regulators have basically telegraphed that they're not looking to kill it. They just want them to clean up their act, right? So we're starting to see that. If all of a sudden, because think of what it would do to the ecosystem if they collapse Tether. If all of it, like, think of what it would do to the ecosystem. It's gotten to the point where it would be, you know, nobody really knows, and they don't want to mess with it. You know, the Novogratzes and the Silberts and all the insiders and all the people that are sort of guiding cryptos at the moment, you know, these large money elites, they want this ecosystem to grow in a controlled way, right? So when something gets a little bit out of control, what do? They'll send a warning shot across the bow, like, fix this, get it together. Another way you know that it won't happen is when Bitfinex needed to cover its, however, I think it was just under $1 billion. Because of its, you know, it was playing fast and loose with its Tether assets. And within 48 hours, they raised that $1 billion in Leo coin. So I mean, anybody that's telling you, oh, this is going to go under, this is going to sink, they're just not paying attention to the reality of the situation.
Came across an interesting YouTube channel that I was not familiar with. It's called DefiSummit. There's lots of interesting videos here for people that want to get closer to some of the DeFi stuff. It's a great, once again, there's only 405 subscribers too. It's kind of like the ETC core dev channel that I mentioned, I don't know, maybe a couple of weeks ago. And I'm just so surprised that, the places like this don't have millions or hundreds of thousands of subscribers. There's people involved in these crypto or these crypto YouTube influencers. And it's like, I truly feel like 99.9% of them is just a waste of your time. And I know that's going to create a lot of hate and a lot of frustration, or maybe people just don't have time to go dig for the information themselves. But, once again, I'll just say this again, the closer you can get to the actual people that run these projects, or closer to, rather than some aggregated site telling you what it means, because a lot of times they have no idea what they're talking about, you're going to be better off for it. So this might be a site that you'd want to subscribe to. Once again, I'm not endorsing, and neither is Santino, any of these DeFi projects, but these are great, and they tend to, they're not marketing pieces. What they do is they consolidate a lot of their summaries and their summits. So you'll get these great, hour long, 45-minute long, 50-minute long presentations from people actually involved in the project. So not a marketing director, but, a technical evangelist, a CEO, a CIO, you name it, but people in the know about the direction that they're going. There was a wonderful one here from Kyber, and I'll include that in the notes. Any thought about this channel, or what gets eyeballs and what doesn't, Santino? Any thoughts about that?
Well, yeah, I mean, look, first of all, what I'll say is, I think if anybody is, because there's just so much out there, and I know people have lives and they're busy taking care of their families and working, and they don't have time to be involved in this. Just really Moo gets it right on these sources. So you can't go wrong with anything that Moo suggests. I've clicked on them myself, and they're, to me, they're credible sources. Believe me, the things that get clicks, like Moo says, folks know. You go on there, it's always the doom and gloom stuff, or the super hype stuff.
Yeah.
I've said it so many times. Look, things are never as good as they seem, nor are they ever as bad as they seem.
100%.
Right? Like, it's never, neither of those extremes are ever the truth. Right. And if you see that in YouTube, just discount it. Just, absorb it if you want, have a look. I'm not the YouTube police. You can watch whatever you want. Okay. But have discernment. Have discernment. Understand that a lot of these people are selling something.
Yeah.
They're selling a narrative. And on that point, I would encourage everybody to understand that we have our own personal narratives, and that you should really invert that narrative every now and then.
Yeah.
Right. It's whatever you think that you're so certain about. Yep. Look at the other side. And that's an interesting exercise for people would be, take your top 5 coins, cryptos that you're invested in. Now pick another 5 that you either completely discount or hate, yep, or can't stand, or would never invest in. You see as just a complete, kryptonite to the crypto universe.
Yeah.
And pick 5 in that group. Stick to the top, stick to liquid stuff. So the top 100 or 150, and track their progress over the next 6 months to a year, and see what happens.
Yeah.
I think some of you will have an interesting experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Try and prove your assumptions wrong. Right. Challenge yourself. And, I think there's a lot of people out there looking for the next coin that's going to go, 10,000x or whatever. Well, practice discernment. Maybe you won't need to turn to somebody to figure out what coin that is, right? If you can sniff out where the good information is coming from, and a place that just wants to sell you a click or commoditize your click, I think that'll be really helpful. I've been talking about this site. I think this is just a wonderful site. I hear a lot of people talk about Bitcoin or different metrics, hash rates, orphaned wallets, different things. And man, Glassnode Studio is great. Yes, they have a paid service, but I don't pay for any of this stuff, and I'm tier 2. So you can just come in and look at stuff. It's like a tier 1. If you register your name and your email address, then they take you up to tier 2. It lets you look at more metrics. Of course, they're probably commoditizing your email address and different things, but whatever. So make some fake ones. So anyway,
hey, Moo, I got a question for you
yeah.
on that address, and you'd be best suited to answer this question. What do you say to those folks that would look at a chart like this and say, well, but one person or one large investor could have multiple addresses, and they're just kind of splitting up one address amongst dozens or hundreds?
Sure, they could be. These movements are this gives you all sorts of information. I think, for example, this one here. So look at how tiny addresses with balances greater than 0.01 or 0.1. I'm sorry. I think these things are amazing. Addresses with balances less than 10,000. I think these are just amazing, these metrics. What would I say about whales that can have multiple addresses? Of course they can have multiple addresses. I'm not sure what that tells me, other than if you had, this is what comes to mind. If you bought Bitcoin at 60 cents, if you bought Bitcoin at $5, if you bought Bitcoin at $60, if you bought Bitcoin at $500, and you bought a boatload of it and it exploded over 10 grand or near 10 grand or near 9 grand, would you start separating those out into multiple wallets? I bet you would. If you're smart, you would. But beyond that, Santino, I'm not sure. Know what I would take from that.
I agree with you. I think that argument kind of takes away. I don't think that's what's the majority of what's happening. I think there's a small part of this graph that skews towards the bigger whale multiplying addresses, but that's not when we talk about grayscale and millennials all of a sudden saying, well, we all own like $100 or $200 of grayscale. That informs me that these are, multiple addresses being actually added, new addresses of new investors.
Yeah, I agree with that. And this, once again, it's great because it'll give you active addresses and kind of orphaned addresses. It'll give you new addresses. You and I have looked numerous times at the metrics from Venezuela, Brazil, you name it. Those addresses, those Bitcoin addresses are exploding. They're exploding. That's real adoption. That's not someone playing games. That's real. I don't want to say it's adoption, but it's growth. I'll say that it's growth. Any thoughts about that when we've seen a troubled place around the world, suddenly, they get into a currency crisis and damn, wouldn't you know it, the Bitcoin addresses start exploding, right?
Yeah, that's a big deal. I mean, whether you're talking Venezuela, Turkey, Iran, go anywhere in the world where they're having problems. This is why Bitcoin is still important, because it's Bitcoin is what they're buying.
Yeah.
Right. It's Bitcoin is what they're running to. For now, it's still the go-to crypto in the world. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying it will always be that way. I'm not saying it can't be surpassed or jumped. It most likely will. But not today, not tomorrow. Right. For now, its dominance is still, needs to be respected. Yeah. Because it's where big money wants to flow. For now.
Another thing I love about this Glassnode is, they have the standard, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, but you're able to peer into some of these ERC20s movements as well, which is really cool. I'm just scrolling through the list so people can sort of see them. But there's a lot of different stuff. So, we can take a look at Tether. It's hard to get a lot of metrics on Tether. Imagine that. Let's take 0x. So sometimes, once again, when you see different price movements, this is cool too. It'll show you supply inside of smart contracts for the different ERC20s, a lot of them. That's really cool to me.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I've never seen that.
Yeah. So like let's go to I didn't expect to spend any time on this, so we might just abandon this. We'll talk about it in another time. But like Chainlink, for example, I found this pretty interesting. So there's, can I scroll down? Why is it being mad at me? Well, we'll talk about this another time, but give this a look. I think you'll find it interesting. Once again, use this as one of your detective tools when somebody's trying to tell you something, and you can figure out pretty quick if they know what they're talking about, or you're just getting a hype, so you'll click on something or whatever. What else do I want to talk about? There's so much to talk about, I think, which is great. I think it's the state of where we're at, right? Santino, you and I have talked numerous times. We used to get like one piece of good news or one interesting nugget, every 3 months. And then it was every month, and then it was every week. And then it was daily. And now, I mean, we're getting overrun with positive news. We've talked about our hopes and dreams for crypto before. Something I'm really interested in is the Hong Kong FreePress. It's run by this guy right here, Tom Grundy. Excuse me. So there's an organization set up, Hong Kong FreePress, reporting on Hong Kong specific issues. They take donations. They just announced that they're beginning to take BAT donations. They've always showed their support. This organization, this free press, this citizen journalism, this on the ground reporting from Hong Kong, and they are now starting to take basically donations in BAT. I think that's wonderful. Some of you have heard me talk about the decentralized VPNs that will be coming to BAT. That's going to happen. If you don't know anything about that, we'll save that for another time. But I'm really excited about Brave Browser. I'm really excited about sites like this that could use some funding, that are doing important work, boots on the ground, actually reporting actual events, not a CNN, not a Fox News, not some bullshit, but once again, a little bit closer to the source. Can these sources be manipulated or give you false information? Of course they can. But the hope and dreams that I have for crypto is that it brings this decentralized nature, right? People there working, putting themselves in harm's way, reporting in a very totalitarian, difficult situation, dangerous situation. We can fund them directly if their message is something we want to hear. Any thoughts about that?
I'm totally with you, Moo. I think there's so much that's going to be accomplished by some of these projects, regardless of the, I mean, we've been talking a lot about the financial side of things and what they're like as investments. Well, both things can be true, right? They can be great investments and they can do a lot of good as well.
Yeah.
I am a believer in the democratization of money and influence, and the decentralization of money and influence. I think crypto is going to help us do that. I think crypto is going to help us out of the financial turmoil that we're going to be heading into in the debt markets. I think it's going to play a key role in that. I think it's going to help. It's just, it's not going to be the answer to everything, but it's going to be part of. It's a part of what's happening, right?
Yeah.
It's a part of a greater sort of movement. And that's why it's going to be adopted, because it's coming along at the right time.
Yeah.
It's coming along when consciousness and humanity is already moving in that direction, right?
Just in the nick of time, right? Just as it's
Right.
needed. Yeah.
Right.
And it's really everything. So if you hear a message of, cryptos are a noose around your neck and they're going to choke you, and it's a data point where you can be tracked, all transactions. Well, you know what? It also enables things like this, where voices that would be left behind, information that's important that gets disseminated, is now allowed to be funded, right? So in the truest sense of the word, you can support activities that you believe in or that you think are important. So it's both things, just like any technology, right? Santino, you and I have talked about firearms or fire or computers or you name it, right? And it's both things. It's never one thing.
That's right. And that's what we were saying before. I mean, it's just narratives are always seem to be always very skewed in one direction in crypto. And just understand that it's going to achieve a lot of things. And yes, it's going to decentralize. It's going to decrease the concentration of wealth in the world. I believe it will do that, but it's not going to eliminate control points or choke points or control centers. They'll just move to different things in ways that we don't see now. But we shouldn't fear that. We shouldn't fear that, right? It's still, because both things can be true. It's not an all or nothing thing, right?
Absolutely, 100%. And if it's something we're concerned about, well, we should learn how to use fire, right? We should learn everything we can about fire.
Right.
If we truly felt that way, right? If we truly felt like a technology. So what I would ask is, any of those people out there spreading gloom and doom about this, that, or the other, telling you how this is going to work, right? Now it's going to be a boot on someone's face, stomping over and over again. Ask them, how much are you learning about this? If it's not stoppable, if it's coming, if you view it as a tool of oppression, how much are you learning about it, right? So that's my challenge to everybody. If you're frightened by these things, learn what they are.
I would much rather be inspired by the world than fear it.
Absolutely.
I mean, fear never is just never a good plan.
And you never make good decisions operating from that base, right?
Never.
Well, great, man. I think that's about it. Of course, you and I could talk for a long time. We'll wrap it up there, but I do want to give you any opportunities to say whatever you would like, or questions you may have, or things you may want to show or talk about, or anything that's interesting to you here before we get back together.
No, I just really thoroughly enjoy these chats with you, Moo. I get a lot of questions about precious metals, and we'll see if there's enough interest. Maybe we can do a few minutes on that separate one day, because I think they're going to play a very key role in what's coming as well. I think it makes sense to have a barbell approach to your investments, with precious metals and crypto. They're both going to serve different functions, but still important, and they relate to each other. I've always said, like, when we see silver start to really break out, will be probably at the same time that we see alts breaking out. Those two have an interesting connection to each other in the world. So stuff like that, which I think maybe some listeners would find very interesting, but there's only so many hours in the day. So
yes, sir. And you're going to be a great resource for that, to offer your opinions, not financial advice, but opinions. And can't thank you enough. Thank you very much, Santino. These are always fun for me. I guess we're about an hour in. I can't even believe it, but it seems like about 5 minutes. Thank you very much. For those frustrated maybe with us about our dive into DeFi, we're learning like everybody else, and don't hate us for that. We're interested. We're enthusiasts. So we'll be learning alongside everyone else. Santino, thanks a lot, buddy.
Thanks so much, Moo. Had a lot of fun doing this.
Thank you. Goodbye, kangaroo vampires. Bye.